Hey everyone. Okay, so I want to start this review by talking about something, which is that I got asked an interesting question in the last review, which is why I continue to cover the series despite knowing the obvious at this point, that it's bad. And if I was to put it into one word, it would be perception. That's the one reason why I keep reviewing this series. When it comes to anime, I've come to learn there's always a 50-50 split when it comes to an audience. The first part of that 50% are people like me who have read the webcomic or light novel and are obviously disappointed by the direction this adaptation has taken. But then there's the other 50% of that audience who have likely not read the source material and probably won't be or probably aren't going to be convinced in order to read the source material after this is said and done because the anime has left them with a very lukewarm perception. So going into this because they're going into this series completely blind, and let's just say the reception on that end, on the anime only end I've seen so far, is at best been mixed. But the one that does, but again, the one that does stick out the most are the people who assume it's just a generic fantasy story, and there is basically your answer. Look, the truth is I'm a small channel. I know that for a fact. These reviews are likely to reach a very small audience of people. But if I could just convert at least 2% of that anime-only viewership over to reading the source material, whether that's the webcomic or light novel, then I'll feel I'll have succeeded to some degree, and that I offer some value offer some value in order to doing these reviews. But okay, with that said, the one thing that's caught my eye with this episode, and admittedly, I was slow to pick up on this, but between last week's episode and this week's episode, one thing that has stuck out to me like a sore thumb with the anime even more than the animation and art is its pacing. Now, granted, it is kind of one of those things where part of it is has to do with the content being adapted as no matter what source material you go to, the webcomic or the light novel, like Turtle Me as an author does spend a lot of time with the world building at the beginning of the story. So he covers from just 20 it covers 20 to 30 chapters in the at least around like 20 chapters worth of content in the webcomic, like before Arthur reunites with his family. So in that regard, I can't fault the anime too much on that. But I think for me where the problem does start to show is the timestamp the anime has chosen to end episodes. Like most anime episodes are around 20 minutes long, where Tabate's episodes kind of range anywhere from like 18 to 19 minutes, maybe just barely reaching the 20-minute mark before the credits roll. And I'm really, and this is one of those things where I really feel the dead air, the dead space with this approach. Like it feels like the anime could squeeze like an extra couple minutes into the episode before rolling the credits, but instead it kind of feels like the episode just gets cut short, which makes me think that ACAT is trying to forcefully end the season at a certain point. I don't know, and yeah, there is a post credit scene when we see Arthur reunite with his family, and I will admit that was a very nice scene. For all the problems I do have with this episode, that scene was actually handled pretty well. Although I think it would have been better to hold off until next episode in order to do the reunion scene, but it is what it is. Uh, but like in overall saying that this episode was slightly better than last week, only by the default standard that it didn't piss me off as much. Although there is still a few weird things to talk about with this episode, as the thing with this episode is it jumps forward with a 3-year time skip, which I think the anime could have done a better job with the transition itself because it just jumped us into it without feeling like a proper reintroduction, making the viewer feel like we're supposed to piece together what's going on our own. Like, and yes, in again, I'm repeating myself over and over again, but the webcomic it does do a better job with the reintroduction, whereas again the anime just kind of plops us like right almost into the middle of things. I'm especially struggling to figure out the point of that sandwich scene, which was not in the comics. So, like, what was the point of that? ACAP, like, seriously. Like, it feels like the anime could have cut that out immediately, cut immediately to Tessa and Arthur training at the very least without you losing a damn thing. Now, there is, now in saying that, there is a tiny bit of credit I do got to give the anime before getting into the stuff that still annoyed me, which is I do like how the anime kind of repackaged the explanation of the element of the lesson of the elements and the nature of magic and whatnot. Although, admittedly, I am still a little iffy on changing the perspective from Virion to changing of the perspective of it being Virion being the one to explain it rather than Arthur. And like I think I get the idea, but it did feel a little strange though. And yeah, let's rip the Band-Aid off right on this one. The episode marks the hatching of Sylvia's egg and the introduction of Sylvie, Arthur's dragon familiar, is born, which in itself comes with its own little problem because in the comics, Sylvie has two sets of dialogue. There's her usual dragon noises, but then there's also her thought bubbles that show what it is she's saying as a way of her communicating like telepathically with Arthur. The anime only has her dragon noises, whereas Arthur is the one who interprets what she's saying. But there's just like a real disconnect when not hearing like Sylvie's thoughts there. That's kind of one of the lighter things, but still things that annoy me. But all right. Following all that is when Virion steps up Arthur's training by going into his beast form, and this is where things got the most weird for me because I didn't entirely hate how they handled Virion's transformation like I thought I would. In fact, I'll be honest, I straight up forgot. It wasn't like the whole thing with Virion's transformation wasn't even a full fight. It was just a demonstration of beast will on Virion's part in order to teach Arthur what beast will looks like. So it's one of those things where I do like the idea they were playing with, that it's not just speed, but also the ability to dematerialize himself through the shadow. And I do like how that was presented in a way, but in saying that, it is still kind of poorly executed. And the only way I can describe it is this is one of those scenes where I feel they could have gone a bit further with the actual demonstration by giving the scene more, I can't believe I'm saying this, aura, so to speak, and just like the one thing that I think really annoys me, I think, about the animation even more than art and animation and the pacing, and this kind of goes with pacing actually, is that it's not letting a moment sit. Like, it's not letting it just kind of rushes through scenes without letting us kind of like soak in a moment. And I think that's what would have helped this scene a bit, is just kind of just slowing things down, letting it all kind of sit in like before moving from one scene to the next. I think that's kind of how I think I'm kind of rationalizing it in my head is why it doesn't work. But it's like on the surface level, it does for me still. Like, it's weird. Now, like like it's one of those things where you need to allow us to, in order to feel how powerful Virion is in that form. And I don't think again, presentation is fine, but they didn't really master it entirely. Like, it's one of those things where concept is great, but again, there's that missing piece to it. But I still do like how it does get across the message that, yeah, a beast will, when properly harnessed, can make someone even more dangerous as a combatant than someone who just wields magic. Of course, upon learning Arthur has a dragon beast will, Virion also kind of warns Arthur that this does make him more of a target, and he should try hiding it or drawing as little attention to himself as possible because of that. Which, yeah, current events in the comic would like to have a word with you on that, Virion, because it didn't plan out exactly how you hoped it would in that regard. But yeah, guys, that's pretty much all I got for this review. If you enjoy the video, like, comment, subscribe, follow me on Blue Sky, Analyst Crunchyroll, be sure to push the subscribe button, and just share the run, guys. Dark Knight of Anime signing off. Later, everyone.